Hey friends, over 60% of you are listening to me right now on an Apple product. iPhone, iPad, iTunes. I need your help. The truth is, Apple will make this podcast more discoverable to new listeners the more reviews it has. So I'm here asking you to take a moment and leave a review. If you've gained any value from this podcast, the greatest thing you can do for it, besides spreading the word and telling friends, is leaving a review. It's real simple. If you're on your phone, head over to my podcast page within the Apple Podcast app and leave a review. Or if you're on a computer, you can head over to my podcast page within the iTunes app. That's it. That's all I ask. And if you have other podcasts that you love, do them a favor and do the same for them. It'll make their day. Now let's get this podcast started already. Daryl, the last time you were on the show was probably a couple of months ago. Kind of give us the quick background of what you've been up to in the last 2 or 3 months since we last spoke. What's going on with you, your brand, all of the above. How you been, buddy?
Sure. Things with me, it's been more of the same, but from the business and brand side, small business and brand side, it's just been slow and steady growth, which is really what you want. And it's been a lot of interaction, mostly from Instagram, but I've been doing more of the podcast, started using the Anchor app, which I know we talked about on the last episode here.
Yes.
And really have just been trying to put something out just about every day, and kind of the response that I've been getting from folks a lot of times just through text and through DM. Just, you get your core listeners, your core fans, the people that just really tune in and really provide feedback. And as you know, that provides a lot of fuel for the stuff that you do. But yeah, just more of the same, and continuing to do what I do, which is I do the one-on-one fitness coaching. I do some other fitness service type stuff. But the information that I use with my clients is the same information that I put out online, in hopes that people will finally look at and say, okay, if I use this bit of information, I can, start working towards my fitness goals, get to where I want to be, and have the skills to stay there. So yeah, just more of the same.
I like what you said about building it slow and steady. I think it goes hand in hand to what one of the things we wanted to talk about today. We were talking about drilling down on the 4 pillars. You and I had a couple of discussions prior to this about, man, we should really get together, do another podcast. I think we have a lot of the same listeners, and there's some overlap, but we have different listeners as well. And I think it's great that the two of us can come on here and talk about this, because talking about those 4 pillars that we talk about, the patience, consistency, hard work, love yourself. The patience one, really right from the jump. I mean, that's why I put it first. When I talk about the 4 pillars, that is the very first one, because it's so important. There's so much noise in the fitness space. We've talked about it on our own podcast. We've talked about it. I think we touched on it on the last podcast, but it's so relevant. It's so timely to mention it here, because a lot of people in a hurry. I think a lot of it is the surroundings and kind of what the mindset is, the kind of, as I like to call it, the sharks in the water. And they're out to make a buck. They're trying to sell, they're trying to sell. And they put this thought in your mind that you need this stuff because it's going to deliver quick results. And I think about when I was almost 400 pounds, Daryl, I didn't get that overnight. It wasn't something that happened in a month, in a week, in a year even. It was a long, gradual process, and thus a weight loss, if not longer, is the same thing, and patience is really of the essence here.
You're right. And I think it's good to talk about this first, because if somebody's scrolling through their social media feed, they're seeing a lot of dramatic results, whether it's somebody posting their weekly weigh-in and how high on life they are when they go down, when the scale number goes down, and how utterly devastated they are when it goes up in such a quick, short time period. We're talking within a matter of a week. You're seeing all of these these programs being advertised, all these products being advertised that are promising quick. And then, it would be one thing if you saw this information and you were happy with the results you were getting for trying these things. But that's not the case. So the fact that really, very, very simple strategy. When something isn't working, you try to do the opposite. So if you're in a hurry, what's the opposite of that? Being patient. And, to your point where you didn't gain the weight overnight and you can't take it off overnight. And I know that's something that people, hear a lot. If they can get patience and if they can get these pillars down that we're going to talk about, then they will start to see success. It's not going to be overnight as far as appearance, but the one thing that really can start to change for them is the mindset. And that, I think, is the biggest thing when we start getting into these pillars. This is going to be a discussion where, so if you're listening to this right now, you may want to take some notes, because this is going to be something where there's going to be things that we say that are going to hit you different than they're.
In other words, you're going to want to take notes, because Daryl comes on here and he says things a lot more intelligently than I say it. He'll come on here and give you some knowledge, some great intelligence. So y'all need to pull out a pen and paper and write this stuff down.
Yeah, we'll say that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, but and starting with patience, if you can just start to take your time with whatever it is you're doing, and you'll hear it again. And a lot of this, we'll probably explain it in the cliche terms first, but then break it down. So it's not a race. You hear that a lot. Well, the reason it's not a race is because you're at one point here where you're trying to lose weight. Now, I totally get it. You could be in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, 50s, and beyond, and you've always had to deal with weight, and you want it off now. I totally get it. But it is going to take longer than weeks and months. But what we're really talking about when we say it's not a race, you're really just going through the next couple of years to develop the habits and skills to learn how you're going to fit this into your life. The scale will take care of itself. And then on the end of that, so we're talking 2, 3, 5 years down the road, it's just you for the rest of your life, which hopefully, no matter any of those generations that I mentioned, you got decades left. You're trading years for decades. That's why it's not a race. It's not because it's just a slogan. It's because if you, instead of trying to, restart, recommit, and we'll get into the restarts here, and I'm sure. Yeah. But instead of restarting, if you just continue on and learn why things haven't been working for you, look at that and adjust, it's not going to take as long as you think. And then for the rest of your life, you're going to have this really, really healthy relationship, not just with fitness and food, but with yourself. So, that's why it's not a race. That's why you want to take your time. And that's why patience as a pillar, I think, is a perfect one to have as number one.
Yeah, it's got to be number one, because when you're starting out, that is something that it has to be the first thing that goes through your mind. We get through the rest of them, the consistency, hard work, love yourself. We're going to get to all that. But the patience, if you are an impatient person, it doesn't matter what you're doing, weight loss, anything in life, when you're impatient, you're going to lose. Because here's the thing, I'm speaking this from experience. I'm not just throwing stones out here. I was a very impatient person, and there are times, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, there are times still where when it comes to other stuff, I get, I'm impatient. I just ordered this thing from Amazon. Why is it gonna get here on Saturday? I want it here on Friday, damn it. So you gotta be patient. And it was a learning process for me in the past 17, 18 months that I'm into it now, where I had to learn to be patient. And that, once you figure that out, that you're going to love how not just how it works for weight loss, but how it works for everything else in life. These 4 pillars, the beauty about these 4 pillars is that they're going to set you up to win at weight loss, but they're also going to set you up to win at life. And that's huge.
Absolutely. And, two points that you made there. One, with patience, and this goes for everything. And this is a very important thing that, again, if you start to get this, a lot of this will make more sense and you'll have a lot more success, is Gary told you he used to not be patient, and he's still not patient about certain things.
It's true.
And the thing is once you figure out that you have to be patient, that doesn't mean that you're patient all the time with the delivery time with Amazon or even with fitness. And, so you're still going to have those moments. The only difference is you're able to take a moment, get out of your own head and say, okay, based on what I'm feeling right now and what I'm seeing, what's the best way for me to proceed? How should I be looking at this? And is what I'm feeling, is that real? Like, is that the real situation? Am I really a failure because the scale went up 0.2 pounds this week? The answer is no.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's the other thing is it's not always going to, you're never going to be 100% on any of this. And then the other part that you mentioned, and this is why I continue to do coaching. This is why I continue to really love the whole working with people, getting them through the process of weight loss, is these skills transfer.
Yes.
The stuff that you learn now, this is the other reason that you don't want this to be a race. You are priming yourself to be successful in other areas of life. You will see the people that have taken the weight off and have kept it off. They start to look at other areas in life where they can apply the discipline. And that's what this stuff really is you're developing the patience so that you can, kind of look and see what's going on and give yourself time to decide. And then you're committing to do things. People will say it's motivation. Motivation does not last. Discipline does. And discipline, we will both tell you in other areas of life, you have to have it. But these skills transfer. But yeah, patience, you have to start with that.
Yeah, I think about just, I'm at a point now where I've seen results, and you will see them in time, but it's like I'm at the point now where I'm seeing where these 4 pillars have deeply affected my life as a whole. I mean, they have deeply affected it and changed the person I am for the better. Now, again, going back to it, am I 100% perfect? Am I 100% knocking it out of the park at all times? Absolutely not. But I am in a much better place than I was a little over a year ago. I mean, it's just that simple. You are setting up the foundation for not just your weight, but your whole life. And when you really think about that and put that in perspective, I want you guys to think about the power that has. Think about that. I mean, really think about it and let that, what they say, simmer in. And once you realize it, I think it's really going to help to change your mind's focus on things.
I'm over here nodding, but that's kind of what happens when you and I get on these topics. I just sit here and nod. So it's all good.
Yeah, we need the visual for this. I see. I think about like, is this Skype lag again, or is this just he's nodding along? He's nodding along, folks. There it is.
That's exactly what it is.
Let's talk about the consistency part of this thing, because that is another huge part. All 4 of these things are huge, Daryl. As far as I'm concerned, if you have 1, 2, or even 3 of them, you're no good. You got to have all 4 of them in concert together. It's like a band. I'm a music guy. They're like a band. You can't be missing a band member. You need all 4 of these components, and consistency is key, because you got to make sure that you're putting in the best effort that you can at all times.
It's true. And really with consistency, you can just boil it down to, if you can do any of this stuff consistently, you're going to get the results you're looking for. And the problem a lot of times with the stuff that promises quick results is it's not something that anyone can do consistently. So you can take any of the eating and exercise plans. Okay. You can follow Weight Watchers. You can follow keto. You can do calories in, calories out on MyFitnessPal. You can do any of this. And the truth of it is if you can stick with it, you're going to be successful.
Yes.
And that again, when we say consistency, it does not mean that you're doing it every day to the amped up intensity level at all times. It just means you're doing the best you can that day, and you're just moving forward with things. So that's the thing. If you find a program that doesn't promise as dramatic results, but you can do it, then you have found the sweet spot that you need to be in, which is if you can do it consistently, you'll be successful. And the most important thing, because see, a lot of these mass marketed programs, because they're targeted towards the masses, aren't taking into account your preferences. If
Yeah.
you can't fit, if you can't fit ideally into a plan and into a program, you make your own. You start figuring out how you can have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at lunch.
Yeah.
You start figuring out, you start figuring out how you can still, if you like eating fried chicken or pizza or whatever, you figure out how you can work it in. So it's more about your preferences than what somebody else has written about or thinks about a plan. And because your preferences, if it's in line with what you like and what you enjoy,
right,
you will continue to do it. And if you continue to do it, you're consistent and you will be successful.
No, I agree. It's something to where you really gotta. I like what you say, customize, because as you know, this is something that I talk about on a very frequent basis, Daryl. It's all about customizing. I just did a podcast about people starting on day one, their very first day in, and how customizing is really, I think, the key to winning. I strongly believe, and I know that these different programs, they all have a purpose, and I understand that, but I deeply believe that when you customize things to work for you, that's when you set yourself up for the most success. When you're following someone else's lead and you stumble and you fall because you didn't uphold to what the standard that they set, because they're not you, they don't have your body, they don't have your mindset. When you follow somebody's stuff to a T and you fail at that, that could be crippling from a mental perspective. I mean, look, there are people that can follow these programs and succeed at them. I'm not trying to say that that everybody is going to fail at them, but I think a large percentage of people do, and that's what leads to a lot of the start, stop, restart, I quit. I went through it. I'm speaking directly from experience, and I think that customizing is such an important thing. And I bring that up in almost every podcast I do about weight loss because it's so important to me, because I've lived through it and I don't want to see other people go through the same thing, this start, stop, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I will tell you, and you mentioned when you follow a plan and a program, and they do have purposes, and there are people that can stick to them. I will tell you, the ones that normally can take a program out of the box and stick with them, they have developed a tremendous amount of discipline from somewhere else in life.
Right.
So we're talking about ex-military. We're talking about ex-athletes. They could even, maybe they only made it up into high school as far as athletics. It doesn't matter. They still were getting up early and going to practices, and they've already developed these routines.
Yes.
So that's why when somebody that has that kind of background starts doing one of these programs, they're able to pick it right up. The other situation is if you're able to really orchestrate your day around exercising and eating a certain way. And we're not knocking you if you are. If you're able to, if
Yes.
your job allows you to work from home and you have the time to put into this and make sure that if you look at your tasks for the day and you've got a whole list of stuff, but you're still able to say, I'm still going to be able to fit my workout in, then then go right ahead and do it. But what happens for anybody that is outside of that doesn't have that much flexibility is they will follow that plan, and then they'll have all the energy at the beginning, they'll have everything lined up, but the thing when you're not going with your preferences and you're going with somebody else's plan, when everything you've read and seen is telling you that if you do this certain thing, you're going to be successful, well, then when it breaks, you automatically feel like you're not successful.
Yes.
And the reason it breaks is because they're telling you best practices. They're not teaching you, what it is that you can do when your day isn't going right, or you have, a parent-teacher conference that you got to do after work, or, you've got a sick spouse and you got to stay with them. They're not, because there's so many variables in everybody's life. they can't possibly account for all of those. That's why it's important that you build around your preferences and your ability, because you're going to figure out how to handle those things as they come up in real time. But that, like anything else, is a skill.
Right.
So,
and hold up right there. I'm sorry, but I have to jump in right now, because you mentioned something where you talk about they can't train you to when you got to take care of a sick spouse or parent teacher meetings and all this stuff. This is one of the things I see online so much, and that is when these life events come up and people, they get so upset. And I'm not here to judge anyone, because we all process things differently, and it's important to say that. But I see people that say, "Oh my God, such and such happened, and my whole night's thrown off because I didn't follow plan, and oh my God, everything's going to hell because one night went bad." And I know what it's like to have a bad night and you get worked up. But then they think that suddenly, if they're, I don't know, a month, 2 months in, all that is just thrown out the window because of one bad night. Like, oh my God, I had to order a pizza tonight, and because I ate that one pizza, every bit of progress I've done is all gone down the window. It's all out the window, and it's all over. And I want to amplify this message loud enough so people in the back can hear it. And that is that it's not over. It's not. I mean, I had one time where I ate out almost every night that week because there was just something going on at home, and we had to order out. And I was still down a pound or two. Not that matters, because we talk about how the scale is not as important as people think, but just to prove that it doesn't always go the way you think. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff just sometimes makes you bloated, makes you feel like crap, and it evokes this emotional behavior. You know what I mean?
I absolutely do. And it's funny because regardless of if you're eating like that for one night, and then you just kind of go through that night, you wake up the next morning, maybe you didn't sleep as well because you felt like all bloated and you felt like garbage because of it. You have this mental thing of, okay, I failed on my plan, but then your body is just feeling like it's been through the ringer. And again, that could be from one day of doing it. Yeah. And then you kind of slug through that day. You've got some other stuff that come up. And then to your point, you have pretty soon had an entire week where you've been eating nothing but fast food. Yep. You've been not getting as near your workouts. If you've been going, have just felt like you can't get yourself into second gear. You're just kind of not really putting forth you're putting forth the best effort you can at the moment, but it just doesn't feel like your norm. And then, you basically are at this point where you're like, I've undone everything. You haven't. What you need, really, the best thing for somebody when they're in a situation like that, which we've all been in, is just decide whether if it's been 3 or 4 days, then you know what? Just take a day where you're not worried about your workout. Your main focus is to start drinking your water again and trying to get back to eating the best way that you possibly can. Then I guarantee you, if you have a day where you're drinking your water and you're just back on plan, you may not feel back to, the way you did before that week started, but you're going to feel much better than you did in that morning, or that particular day. And then you wake up the next morning, you go back into your normal routine, and you feel fine. Now, the one thing, and this is something that's important too about doing your own thing. If you just had a week like that where you've had a bunch of stuff that's not on your plan, and your plan is telling you that you need to weigh in every week, guess what? Skip the weigh in. Yes. Because most of the time, if you've had a week of eating nothing, the stuff that you kind of blush when you're talking to your fitness buddies about it. If you've had a week of consuming that stuff, the last thing that you need to do is do the weigh-in. And if it's, I'm doing the weigh-in because this is what the program is telling me to do, or this is when my meeting is, or because I entered some diet bet that, I'm not mentally strong enough to be a part of right now. I'm sorry. I'm not, there's a lot of my friends that participate in and have links for them. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. But God. You touched on something very important with diet bets is you have to really, there's only a certain type of person that that is in the right mindset to do those, because otherwise you're taking something that you don't have control over, the number on the scale, and it's also, by the way, something that has been emotionally beating at you your entire life.
Yes.
And you're literally turning this into a game of winners and losers. And I think when so much of weight loss and fitness is kind of where you are mentally with yourself, diet bets can make things so much worse, even if you end up winning a couple of them.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's
and
you touched on a really good point there too.
Yeah, and look, I'm not necessarily against them. I mean, I get invites to do them all the time. I don't participate in because I don't like to put that kind of extra stress on it. I'm at the point now where I love going to the gym. I enjoy it. I want to show up, get my workout done, feel good about it, go home, rest, eat a proper dinner, what have you. The last thing I want to worry about, again, because I've talked about this in the last podcast, another podcast where I used to treat my weigh-ins like a damn UFC fight that I had to cut weight or whatever. To hammer it home, I have nothing against these diet bets, but I think that it's a case-by-case basis, and you should really consider if you are mentally strong enough, you have to ask yourself, can I accept seeing a result on the scale that is not favorable, that goes up? Can I accept that? Number one, if the answer is yes, then maybe you are mentally strong enough to deal with this, because like you said, it's not always in our control. And these people, they get in these games and they see the weight go up, or during the week they put more pressure on themselves because they know that they have to get a good number on this bet. And it just becomes added mental stress that, quite frankly, we don't need. A lot of us don't need. I'm not speaking for everybody there, but I think you get where I'm at with this. But I'm not against them, but I think it's just a case by case. You got to be in the right mental frame for that kind of thing.
So I think, and this really not only diet bets, but this pretty much sums up everything you've seen. Even if somebody is talking about the cliche that we, like the wraps and the herbal teas or whatever. Yeah. If somebody messaged you and you talked and they said, hey, I've lost however much weight using wraps and teas, I have a feeling you would have the same response to them I would, which is fantastic. You've done it.
Yeah.
So, the whole thing is, under the right circumstance, most of this stuff works. The thing is they're really, you have to find out what is going to be the right mix for you.
Yep.
And you cannot go by what an advertisement says, when we're talking diet bets, you can't necessarily go by, the person that's hosting it, because if they've got the link, there's some tie in there with them and diet bet. You have to really step outside of everything and say, okay, for my situation, what's going to be best? We're not bashing any one particular thing, unless it's against the four pillars here. But again, if you find something that's worked for you, then continue doing it.
Yeah, that's just so key. I just think it's a culture on the internet where we see others, and it's great. I mean, look, we have a community. We're all part of this community. We root each other on. We're in there with the good times and the bad. But I think it's just times we see others getting results that we want ourselves, and maybe we're not seeing it. We're stalling out, and then we think, oh my god, the world's ending, or we're in this diet bed, and Johnny and Betty and all these other people, these are fake people, by the way, they're doing really good in their bet. Look at that, they hit their goal, and damn it, I went up 0.5. I lost my $30 that I put in or whatever, and that's right. It becomes a problem. So check your head, make sure you're mentally strong for this stuff. Make sure that, like Daryl said, it's not affecting the four pillars. And if it's not, then by all means go out there and win all that damn money. Take everybody's money. Go for it. I love it. Be a winner. Right. I'm all about advocating winning here.
Yes. That's right. We're all about people being winners.
Exactly. So this is what I love about getting on the phone with Daryl, because we can just talk here and talk. We were talking about consistency, then we went off on like 3 other tangents, and I love that. I mean, that's awesome. But but we'll bring it back to consistency and talk a little bit about, just the absolute, the importance of and what it really means to be consistent from your standpoint.
What you're doing when it comes to weight loss is you're figuring out how to get yourself into a calorie deficit. So that means that the estimate, that these numbers are all estimates, by the way, that you see for calories,
Yep.
from the labels to your food, from your fitness tracker, everything is an estimate. But you want to make sure that the calories that you're tracking, that number that you're putting into your body is less than your body is burning. So everything else on top of that is just another layer. So points, macros, it's all another layer. So you want to consistently be able to find a way to be eating less food than what you're burning off. Now with exercise, you can lose a ton of weight by just walking. It's not glamorous.
Yes.
And it's not, it's not the sexiest way of doing it.
And it's not quick either.
Right. But if you take somebody that is starting a walking program and they, take out their smartphone and they just put the timer on and they say, okay, I'm walking. They're able to do 3 blocks and they stop the timer and it says that it took them, 6 minutes to do that. Then they just put a little note in their phone, put the date in there, they put the distance they walked, they put the time, and then the next day they do it, whether that's the very next day or a couple days after that, they try to do the same distance faster and or go a little bit further. They just jot that down, but they are consistently doing it to the best of their ability. Now, when we're talking about eating and exercise, which is all this stuff is, you figure out how you can, burn more calories than you're taking in, the calorie deficit. You figure out how you can do that, and you figure out how you can exercise consistently, and then you just go from there. So anybody that's just counting calories and walking, and they've been at that for, for 4 months and they've lost 12 pounds versus somebody that is on a super restrictive diet and a super, just a very detailed fitness regimen, and they've lost the same amount of weight in 6 weeks. If we're taking that money that we didn't put into diet bets and we're putting it on people's success, my money is on the person that is doing the calorie counting and the walking, because they have really built it into consistency, and it's going to be something that they can stick with. Not to say that every person that does the really strict regimens can't be consistent. I'm just telling you that if you took most people, if they started with walking and calorie counting and gradually worked their way up, they would see the kind of lasting success. Because, like, to your point, it's not the fastest way to lose weight, but what we found is the slower way is actually the more steady and the better way of doing these things.
No, I agree. And actually, I don't know if you saw this. I saw somewhere now there's a step bet out there, and I would almost be willing to say maybe you want to put your money on a step bet because it'll encourage you to walk and walk and walk rather than results on the scale, I would say.
I think that would be a good way to go. Actually.
I actually have a cool app. Just a little sidebar. I have a cool app called Achievement. It's not, you don't have to bet any money or anything, but it ties into your fitness tracker, and they pay you. I think it's like $10 or something, like every time you hit a certain step number, and it takes a while to get there. It's not like, you can just walk nonstop 24 hours a day and hit this number quickly, but it's actually a pretty cool app called Achievement. It's tied into your fitness tracker, and it will tell it how many steps you've walked, and after a certain threshold, and I don't have it in front of me, but they will pay you $10, which is pretty damn cool.
That is. You're getting paid to build a habit of consistency.
Exactly. And consistency is important when practiced with patience and practice with our very next pillar, hard work. We've touched on this already, Daryl, but I think it's worth it to bring it back just a little bit, because there's so many people out there that are selling, like you mentioned, the detox teas and the wraps and the pills and the sub. All these things are out there, but nothing replaces hard work. And much like you said, to your point, just getting out and walking, that's how I got my start. I went to the gym, and you don't have to go to a gym, by the way. You can just go outside if you don't feel comfortable with the gym. That is okay. There's nothing wrong with you if that is the issue. Just go outside and walk, but just walk. Go in a mall. If it's raining outside, drive to a mall and walk around a mall. That's another thing I would do. But the hard work, I just showed up to the gym, and I said, okay, for 3 days a week. When I first started, I'm going to go 3 days a week, and I'm going to go on the treadmill a minimum of 1 hour. And I just went on there and I started out walking, which turned into jogging, which eventually turned into running. I was adjusting inclines, but I was putting in the hard work. It goes with the consistent thing of the schedule, but then actually showing up and putting in that work and working hard. It is so critical to make sure that when you're going to the gym, you're putting in the most effort that your body will allow, that you are comfortable with, but to go all in on whatever that strength is that you have.
So when I think of hard work, I think of the mental side of it, because that,
Great.
To your point, that's the part that's hard. What's really nice about fitness and trying to lose weight is anybody can start from where they are and get to a better version of themselves, and that's themselves, which is really what we want. But when we talk about hard work, we're not talking about, maxing out on weight with low reps every time to where,
Right.
You're so sore you're not able to move the next day.
Yep.
We're talking about those days where, you had the 1 or 2 days we talked about earlier where you ate a bunch of stuff the night before, you didn't sleep all that well, you're still feeling kind of bloated. It's saying, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go do my workout, and I'm going to push through my day, rather than just, going back to sleep and saying, I'll get to it tomorrow. Now, this again is something where you've got to be able to kind of assess your body and where you are. But I've heard you say this before. Your mind will give up much, much faster in a lot of cases than your body will.
Oh, yes.
So when we're saying work hard, it's putting in that effort to to consistently work to the best of your ability, which isn't always pushing yourself physically, but it is a lot of times pushing yourself mentally. And it could even be, my favorite piece of equipment at the gym right now, cardio wise, is the stair climber.
Yes.
And I can look at at the floors climbed, and I typically end up doing, it ends up working out to 105 floors a day. There are definitely times where I've got just a couple minutes left, and I'm like, I'm at 100 floors. This is a great workout. I couldn't have done this when I started, but then I'm like, nope, you just have to keep going. And it could be just going and doing the workout that day, or it could just be, squeezing in a couple of extra minutes, doing a couple of extra steps or sets, extra steps too. Or it could be, the hard work could be when you end up going out with your friends and everybody's ordering wings and you're not really feeling the wings. The only reason you would get them is because everybody else is. And you go ahead and say, no, I'm not doing the wings. I'm going to get, my Caesar salad or whatever. But it's just putting in the effort and the work. And it's those things that a lot of people, that's why the stuff that promise quick results are so successful from a selling and a marketing standpoint, is because hard work is the way, and everybody wants to find a way around that. So people that promise that have success. But if you're going to be able to do this and it's going to last, you have to work hard, and you have to work hard pretty much every day. You have to, there's the word again, you have to be consistent with your hard work.
I love what you said about not pushing it too hard, because I used to go on those stairs and do like 300 floors a day. Mm-hmm. And, I did feel good, but I also realized that I was spending probably more time on it than I needed to. I'm seeing now that, yes, I could go on there for an hour and a half and do 300 floors, or I could go on there for a half an hour and do a little over 100 floors, taking my time and being patient, being consistent, and then using the other half an hour, because I generally go for about an hour, using the other half an hour to work on my weights, strength training and things like that. And I'm finding that the results are equal, and I'm not killing myself nearly as much. And I'm still feeling good afterwards. I'm not feeling sore. I'm not feeling, dead the next day. And so I just wanted to circle back to that, because I just love how you put that, where you were talking about not going super hard, because I think that's another thing too that leads to failure is people think they got to go in, they got to go really hard. I made this mistake when I first got there. I was like, oh man, put the treadmill on speed number 5, incline at 15, let's rock and roll. And holy crap, I was ready to fall over at that point. And it's just the wrong mindset. You have to take your time and get that good workout in, but find a comfortable level. And that's where it comes back to being consistent, finding that comfortable level and just being consistent about it over and over and over and over again, and you will be successful.
Well, and and part of working hard and being consistent and also having the patience is actually what should be the number one goal of any workout you're getting ready to do, which is you want to be able to come back and do it again next time.
Oh, yeah.
Because like you said, I mean, you can overdo it. You can wind up being on the couch for a couple of days, or you can wind up with a serious injury. And in the fitness community, you know how many times you see people that have been just completely crushing their workouts, doing all their stuff, and then the next post you see is them leaving the orthopedic with a walking boot on because they've got a stress fracture.
Yep.
Because when they started to feel that pain in their, they didn't take the days off. They didn't really, get it checked out before then. And now it's an injury that really is going to take some time to heal. So we say work hard, and that's the pillar, but it's the work hard and smart. And you've got to find the balance there. And that's what I liked about what you were saying, because as you're talking about, and this goes back to the last time we talked too, because you had been doing the cardio for a while, and
right.
you're like, I'm really working on weights. Well, what you found in doing this is, I need to be able to do both. So instead of doing 300 floors on the stair climber and doing an hour and a half, or doing the weights, you're like, this isn't an either or thing. I need to do both. I need to be smart about this. And it's the same principle on this pillar. You got to work hard and you got to work smart. So
yeah, I'm noticing right around that half an hour mark, I'm yanking my ass off those stairs, and going right to my different weights, because I know that I'm giving myself an hour, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to make sure that I'm teaching myself the discipline of doing the different things. So yes, of course, I could go in there and spend 2 hours if I wanted to, but that's not the point. I'm disciplining myself to get in and get out in 1 hour, and making sure that I optimize the most of my time and visiting a variety of different machines. And I also think it's important to make sure that your rest days are in there. You should not be going in there 7 days a week, I don't think. I mean, that's just an opinion. Of course, everybody's body's different. Some people probably go 7 days. A lot of people probably go 6. I think 5 at max is what works for me personally. It's just my opinion. And I allow rest days like every other day to allow my body to heal up. Today is a rest day. We're sitting here doing a podcast. Today's a rest day. Tomorrow I'm back at it. Saturday I'm going to be out of town. I won't be able to make it to the gym, but I'll be probably doing about 30,000 steps walking around Six Flags. So it's just all about, that balance. I mean, that really in itself should probably be a damn pillar, but I think it's more of a sidebar. If anything, it's finding that balance and making it work for you.
That's absolutely correct. And you touched on something that's really important, where you said for most people, 5 days a week or so would be a good place to start. The people that are working out every day have done this for a while, and they're very in tune with their body and what they're capable with and what their routines are most likely going to look like.
Right.
So they're able to pace themselves, and they're able to, like you were saying, in each given workout, they're able to try the different things. So it's not like they're doing really hard intervals, all but one day. It's not like they're doing all hard weights all but one day. They've really worked to develop that routine and to really pay attention to what their body's telling them. For most people starting out, 3 to 4 days a week is perfect. And 3 to 4 days a week, if you're, I know you and I both have Planet Fitness memberships.
Yep.
If you have a Planet Fitness membership, you can go in there 3 days a week, do 30 minutes of cardio. You can do the stair climber like Gary and I have been talking about here, or you can do the treadmill. Now, with the treadmill, if you can do incline over speed. So
yes.
somebody that's doing the 2.5 speed, but is working in intervals of say 4 and 5 incline is actually going to get a much better result than somebody that's running or jogging on a 0 incline. So you could do 30 minutes of that, and then they do have the 30-minute circuit there. They do have the purple machine circuits. You can just go through those, and you make sure that you do 20 to 30 minutes of strength training. So there you've got a workout that's probably going to be 50 to 60 minutes. You do that 3 times a week. That's a great place to start. And then as you get comfortable with that, then you start looking at trying some different things. But yeah, you have to figure out what works for you. And it's always better to start at a place that's going to be a little bit lighter than going too hard, too fast, because you can always build up. You can't always scale back.
Yeah, I know some people are probably listening and they're probably saying, well, you got to push it. You got to make an effort to try to go harder and faster. I agree to a point. So my example is I like to have a day where I kind of just test things. And again, this is why I like to be super focused on customization, because it allows me to just say, oh, I'm going to go do this now. But what I'll do is I'll go on like the treadmill, for instance, and I'll test. I'll see like, okay, I don't know, 2 days ago, the fastest I was able to go was this at this incline. So today I'm going to try and tap it up like a click or 2 or 3, and I'm going to go and see how long it takes me before I feel like I'm going to crash out. And before that comes, I'm going to slow it back down. So I like to go in and really just test my body, several times, at least once a week, but test the body and see, okay, what is the limit? I'm constantly going back and reevaluating what that limit is. And what I'm finding is that in time, it's getting stronger as we go along. It's just taking time to get there.
So what's going to happen? And again, we're talking about the different things that you're focusing on besides the number on the scale. But by doing that, you're actually really minimizing the likelihood that you'll have a plateau.
Yes.
Because a lot of times what happens with people with plateaus is they get so comfortable in the routine that they're not challenging themselves.
Yep.
What you're doing just by going up a couple of clicks or a couple of levels is you're really seeing where your body's at. So you're doing this test workout, but then the next time you come in and you're doing the longer version of whatever it is, you know that you can push yourself to that level, or you might even want to try a little bit higher. And you're not doing that just because you're wanting to be macho and go higher.
Right.
You're doing that because you've already tested it, and you saw that it's well within your capabilities. So no, I mean that's a very good thing to do. Again, getting to that point of where you're trying to figure out how strong and how strong your muscles are, how good your endurance is. So yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, I'd say take a day. Maybe it's like a Saturday, because I think a lot of us, we think of the week, it's like our core main days that we go, and maybe Saturday almost feels like a bonus day. So cool. So use Saturday just as an example. Use Saturday as a day that maybe you tested. So if you're rocking the stairs, and I know for me, I generally am comfortable at around 8. So maybe you want to try 10. Maybe you want to try 12 if you're feeling a little bold. And so you go in there on that day and you go through your normal workout, but you test as you go through it, and you just kind of push the limits just a little bit and see kind of where you're at. And when you start to feel out of breath or things are getting tough, then you slow it down, right? You slow it down. You even hit pause. It's okay to hit pause and stop to take a breath. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to go nonstop continuously. Obviously, you want to try. That's obviously the goal. But when you're testing yourself, maybe you stop for 30 seconds and just breathe for a little bit. Just breathe and then get right back to it. And I think you'll find that, you're going to see over time that your body's going to be adjusting better to these situations.
It's all about taking the time to actually figure out where you are and where you can go. And yes, if you do this, it's a better setup for you, again, long term, which is what you and I are constantly pushing, is that this is not something that needs to be over quickly, but by taking the time and doing these tests, you're continuing to build you're building upon the foundation that you already have, so that you're going to be successful. So yeah, I love that.
Exactly. And it goes right into the fourth pillar, and that is self-love, or as I like to say, love yourself. I believe firmly in it that if you don't love yourself, it's game over. And you brought up a point before about, people that are in the situation where they're getting in a weight loss journey. They may not have the highest opinion of themselves, but you ultimately you will learn it. I mean, and you have to. It's got to come at some point, because when you think about it, it was explained to me once that when you think about what your body has been through, what you've put it through the choices that you've made, and your body's been there by your side and held you up, whether it was rough or not. Your body held up, it stuck with you. And I think that that's truly discovering love for yourself. It's not an ego thing like, oh, I'm just so in love with myself. It's all about it's all about thinking about your body, loving the skin that you're in, because it's been there for you. It's been there right by your side. It's a part of you, and it's held you up through the good times and the bad.
I think I agree with all of that. And I think that, yeah, you have to be first on the same page with yourself. You have to get to a place where you're kind of accepting that you're at the place where you are now. And you have to realize that, yeah, I'm ready to make a change. Now, again, if you're somebody that has been dealing with weight your entire life, it's not like you can just flip a switch and say, okay, I'm going to like myself now, even though up till this point, I'm not really all that crazy. And I've had some internal dialogue that is not all that positive. I think you have to like yourself before you love yourself. And one thing that I can recommend is if you go on my Instagram profile, which it's at Your Level Fitness, it's all lowercase and all one word. I've pinned the stories there that are it's called the ninjas, and these are the positivity ninjas. And who these people are accounts that I interact with regularly, and they're all about supporting others. And if you interact with them, so the first step, I think, really to have a tactic to do this is you surround yourself with people that are going to hold you up in a positive way. There is no negative talk from them towards you from any of these folks. And the one thing about being a positive person, this goes back to what we were talking about before, you're never going to be in a situation where you're 100% positive. And what I thought was really, really, it was telling, and it was a really nice, honest thing from everyone. When I first did a post on the Positivity Ninjas, it was probably around the time that you and I talked before, and I had tagged about 5 or 6 people in an Instagram story. And every one of them, Gary, messaged me and said, I can't believe you think I'm this positive. And we talked through it, and I told them why, and they were kind of like, well, yeah. So the people that are the most positive, it's funny when we're all like in our own heads, we don't necessarily think that other people would think of us as being positive. But, if you're, and everybody of course is different, and this is just a number I'm pulling out of thin air.
Yep.
If you catch yourself saying 21 negative things about yourself today, and tomorrow you say 20, that's progress. You are a more positive person than you were yesterday. And that's all you're doing. But I will tell you, there's people in the fitness community, really in all communities, but especially in fitness, are very quick to support others.
Yes.
The problem is supporting themselves and having a positive outlook on where they're going. But I want you, if you really struggle with a positive image of yourself, check out those folks, message each and every one of them, because when I put them in the story, I tag their profile. So it's very easy for you to just click on them or click on them. Just send them a quick message and say, hey, I saw where you were one of, Daryl's Positivity Ninjas. And I'm struggling right now with this whole weight loss stuff. And, I guarantee you they will say something very positive to get you out of the funk. And if you the more you interact with positive people, the more your mindset is going to change. That's one thing. Like, instead of us just sitting here and telling you, hey, love yourself, this is how you get there. If you surround yourself with people that are going to build you up and build into you, Gradually, you're going to start feeling better about yourself. Gradually, you're going to feel as good about your progress as you do when you're trying to support other people.
Yeah, it's definitely who you surround yourself with. Gary Vee talks about that. He's like, drop your loser friends, you know. And some of that is it's to get attention when he says it like that. But the message itself holds weight. It holds value. And it's really in who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with a bunch of people who are negative all the time, you're gonna by default be a negative person. If you surround yourself with the Daryl's positivity ninjas or other folks that are, you know, like-minded folks that are on a similar path that are thinking positive, well then you're going to have a more positive outlook on life. And it's really important to surround yourself with the right people. And then from there, you've got to believe in yourself, ignore the noise, and fight like hell for the life you want. I mean, that's really what it is. That's the best way I can describe it.
I think that's a perfect explanation of it.
Let's really drill into this whole restart thing, because I know that was another reason why we decided we wanted to come together today. This is something that it's such a pattern I see on a pretty regular basis. And I've seen people, and I've reached out to some people that I've seen post things like this where they're like, you know, I really just need to start over. Everything has gone to hell. I put on, I don't know, I'm just going to put out a number, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. I haven't been on plan in a week or two. Everything is just going to hell. I need to just restart and start over. And I did a podcast about it. I said, you know, look, your life is not a video game. You don't fall in the little Mario hole and then you lose a life and you start over. This is one continuous thing. We have speed bumps, we have little roadblocks, but ultimately it's a one continuous thing. I don't think this whole restart, relaunching and all that stuff, I think it's all BS. I don't think it's a real thing because it's a one continuous journey.
It is. And, you know, life goes on regardless of if you're proclaiming that you're going to restart or that you're going to continue. Your life goes on.
Yes.
So, you know, and our day to day is just made up of choices and decisions. And when they're the ones that are surrounded around fitness and weight loss, you're going to look at that situation. You're going to make a choice. Some choices are going to be more focused towards you having results than others. But you make a choice, you own it, and you move on. And what happens, you mentioned that it's kind of a continual pattern. And the people that you see declaring restarts, usually it's not the first time that they're doing that.
No.
And they are, whereas, you know, you could over time build the habit of walking or going to the gym or, you know, pre-tracking all your food for the day. You know, they get into this habit of restarting whenever life throws them a curveball. And it's just this mindset that eventually things are going to be better if I have a fresh start in my mind. And it never really seems to work out, because eventually, whether it's, you know, a couple weeks or a couple months down the road, they're back to restarting. But the actual process, and I've talked about this before, where, you know, the stuff it takes, which are the 4 pillars that we just touched on.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that it takes. So regardless of if you're continuing on or you're restarting, you know, that's what it takes. But back to what we were talking about with the food choices and having a bad week or so of eating and it not undoing all the stuff that's already been done. You know, if you're somebody that's worked through this and you've worked hard for 6 months and you've had, you know, maybe even 2 months where it hasn't gone the way you've wanted it to, if you're saying you're restarting, you're basically also saying, you know, the months I put in before where I was successful, I'm just forgetting those too, and I'm starting from square one.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just forgetting and wiping away the you know, choices that you're not happy about. You're wiping away everything. But, you know, it's a continual process, and eventually people start to get that it's not something that they just start and stop. It's just something that they continue to do. And that's why, you know, it was funny because when you were talking about this, and this will get into, you know, we may talk about this too, where just, you know, the way that we can communicate with one another in such a quick turnaround time.
Yep.
I was actually listening to that rant, because that's what you set it up as, was a rant.
Yes.
When I was stretching at the gym, and that's typically when I come up with my podcast topics. And I literally was like, what am I going to talk about today? And I'm listening to this, and you gave me a shout out. I'm like, well, okay, it's cool. If he gave me a shout out, then I'll just go ahead and run on this topic, and we'll see what happens. But then, that's what led to the challenge that we put out to people, which was pledge that you're done with the restart.
Yes.
And I've gotten messages from people that have said, it's just a slight change in mindset, but it's a huge one. And it's almost like a weight has been taken off their shoulders, because they realize they can make a mistake. They will make a mistake, and life goes on. The weight loss journey goes on. I mean, we're just really, everything we're talking about is slight changes in mindset and focus.
Yes.
The actions all still have to be there, but yeah, that's why if instead of saying you're going to restart, you just continue on and do the best you can moving forward. I
can't tell you how many Instagram posts I've seen where it says, day one, I'm starting over, and I'm just like, I just want to reach out and hug this person and tell them that you don't need to do this. Like it
Right.
goes back to the thing of where they gain the half a pound and they go on the apology tour, as I famously say, where they just go out and it's a paragraph. It's a gigantic paragraph. Well, I did this wrong. I did all this wrong. And this is why this. And it's just like, you don't have to go through all that. Really, if you want to share a bad thing that happened, that's fine. I think that's good, because you shouldn't only share the good stuff. You should share the bad, but that doesn't mean that you have to say, I'm starting over and all this and that. People, but here's the thing. Here's really the punchlines, Gary Vee would say. Everybody that's going to read your post is going through something similar that you're going through. So they're going to understand, like if you say, man, I had a bad weekend, I ate this and that, people are going to be like, oh man, I can relate to that. They're not going to say, God, you suck at life, you really need to start all over. I think that people think that, oh, I have to post, I'm starting over, so people don't judge me, and they don't,
Right.
They won't come at me in a harsh way, when in reality, the very people that they're talking to have been in those situations, and probably some of them have not shared the bad times, but they're in a similar situation, and they know exactly where you're coming from, and you don't need to apologize to them. You don't need to say, I did this and it's day one now. You just say, look, man, I had a really bad weekend, but guess what? It's Monday and I'm back on this shit. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the thing is if you put it out there that, your weekend was this, but you're owning it and moving it forward, somebody's going to read that and say, yeah, mine was too.
Yeah.
But I'm going to move forward. I'm not restarting.
You're probably going to inspire somebody else that's scrolling through.
Exactly. And then they're going to post about it, and then somebody might see theirs. I mean, that's the other really neat thing about what we're doing, like with Instagram and social media in general, is you really can change somebody's thought process with something you put out. And that there's just this whole culture around weight loss that everything has to be perfect, and it has to be fast, and we have to restart when things aren't perfect. And really one of the things, kind of an underlining thing that Gary and I try to get out to you guys, is we're just trying to change the focus here.
Yes.
And if you decide that you're going to stop with the restarts and you're just going to continue and move forward, somebody that's been struggling with their weight for 20 years, that has restarted however many dozens of times, might see that, and in their head, it might just be like, you know what, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
I mean, you never really know, but what we're really talking about is just a much more relaxed mindset. The effort is still there, but you just continue on. When you do something that you don't feel like is what you should be doing, you own up to it and you move on.
Exactly. Think about you could potentially help somebody else by posting that rather than saying I'm starting over. Because when you say I'm starting over, I think you're also showing other people that that's okay. That's an okay mindset to have. And you're only promoting something that probably is not a very good idea. Just keep going forward and know that this is your life. It's not a video game. You don't get to restart the level. You just keep on going. Life is one continuous journey, whether it's weight loss or anything else. It's just one continuous journey, and that's ultimately what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
So, man, I feel like we've just dropped the damn gauntlet on these people. Just like, man, check this out, check that out. Like, I think we dropped some real knowledge. What else could we possibly share here? And I'm not trying to make it sound like we're big headed and that we know everything, but I think that I think we're in agreement that there's just so much noise, and I always tell people ignore the noise, but there's so much noise in the fitness industry, and that we're just here to punch a hole right through all that and say, look, man, we're thinking about it from the calm, cool, collected, kind of more logical way, and sometimes, you know, I know for me, I get carried away, I get fired up in some of these podcasts, but it's just, man, I just want people to know, slow down and just keep going. It's okay. We don't need to restart. We don't need to get mad at going up a pound. It's just all these things go back to patience, consistency, hard work, love yourself. It all ties into that.
Well, I think where we go from here, because we've touched on the 4 pillars, and then we threw in, I guess, kind of the bonus pillar, don't restart.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest thing with all this is, how does it, as you're listening to this, and if you've been taking notes on it and you've jotted some stuff down, how does this apply to you? So I think the most important thing out of what we're talking about here is, what is your next step?
Yes.
And I think the best way to handle that is with all the stuff that you've taken in. Any question you have, whether it's one question or whether it's 17 questions, I want to hear them, because I want to make sure that you have what you need to get from where you are right now and start moving forward on this. I can't speak for Gary, but I think he's in the same boat. Is we just want to help you,
yes,
however we can. So I would say the best way to do that is going to be on Instagram. Again, I'm at Your Level Fitness, all lowercase, all one word with that.
Right.
But just start a conversation. That's probably where I would want, after with all of this. Send me a message via DM. You can, if you're on my profile, you can pull up my email, and you can actually text me if that's easier for you. But I think when we do an episode like this that is so information heavy, it's really about, okay, you've heard all this. Now, where do you go from here? So, I mean, I think that's probably the best place for us to take it, is just reach out with whatever specific questions you have.
And I'll add this too. If you're going to do it on Instagram, if you feel comfortable, and Daryl, by all means, if you feel comfortable with this, hey, why don't you just add us both to the conversation, and we'll give you a double dose of positivity in your DM. How about that one? Group chat.
Yeah, I think group chat would be perfect, because I think what you've probably noticed, if you've listened to this, while Gary and I have very, very similar ideas on this stuff, we come at it from different ways.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, this is the most important thing. If you're within this community and weight loss is a big thing for you, it's making sure that you have your context, and just having a conversation with us about this will make the habits kind of start to gel faster. You'll see how to really put the pillars into your day to day. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. Do a group chat, and we'd be more than happy. While we like putting the general statements out, you know, you can tell by the way that we're doing this, we're trying to think of as many things as we can to give you specific points, but there is nothing more specific than when you're having a conversation with both of us, or one of us, or, you know, however you want to do it. But yeah, I hope to have a bunch of group chats that would be you, me, and the folks listening. I think that would be fantastic.
I love it, and I've even got some more ideas on that we can talk about off the air. But I think that would be a great way. Somebody if they feel comfortable, of course, go to your preference. If you want to talk to one or the other, maybe you like the way Daryl's spin on it, go for it. Or if you like my spin on it, hit me up. But if you kind of like somewhere in the middle and you want to get a double dose of positivity, feel free to jump in a chat with both of us, and we can do it. I think I can't believe that I've not ever suggested this before. I guess I never really thought about it. The group chats.
Well, it's kind of the neat thing when you and I get together on this, because no two conversations are alike, and you start thinking about things as we're working through it. So no, I think it's something that would be very beneficial to a lot of folks, and yeah, I'm up for it, and we'll see what else we can come up with too.
And so as we wrap this thing up, I want to selfishly, because I want to hear your spin on it, because every time I listen to your podcast daily, the Almost Daily podcast, I want to get some knowledge on this, because I dropped the podcast about your first day in, and today is August 1st. For those of you listening, today is August 1st. It's a brand new day. So let's just pretend, hypothetically, Daryl, there's someone that has downloaded this podcast. Maybe they saw us on Instagram, or they just stumbled on it randomly, and today happens to be their very first day on their weight loss journey. Like, there was no restart before, but this is legitimately their very first day. How is Daryl Perry, how is Daryl Perry of Your Level Fitness going to approach and drop some knowledge on them about what their plan should be, what their thoughts should be on day freaking one? What's your take on that?
So on day one, what you're going to focus on is you're going to be consistent with effort, and that's on all things. That's with eating, that's with exercise. You're going to be patient with the progress. You're going to be able to set goals. And if you go onto the website, if you go to yourlevelfitness.com/framework, I lay out how you set what I call minimum daily actions, and you tie those into weekly goals, and then you go into progress updates. So basically all you're doing is setting very specific goals. You're then executing on those. You're then going to be checking those off on the week. And then you're going to do a progress update, which is you get on the scale, you take progress photos, you measure your waist, then you put that info, you put that away somewhere, you get back to work, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. So that's the framework and the structure. Now, if you go and listen to the podcast, my whole thing there is I want to hit you with a very similar message to what we're talking about here, which is I want you to work hard consistently. I want you to be patient, and I want you to work on being your biggest fan, be your own coach, be your own trainer, because you're in your own headspace more than anybody else is. So tune into that. I tried with the podcast. I've done some longer ones here lately, but I try to keep those between probably 5 and 10 or 12 minutes.
Yep.
But it really is just stuff that I put out that, I want to reinforce that message. A lot of the stuff that we talked about here, the cool thing about the podcast is you can listen to them in any order. I don't really follow a sequence. I don't really do show notes. It's basically whatever conversations that have been coming through with either with clients that I have, or with people within the fitness community, or just stuff that I see. I try to basically put talk about these big things within fitness and weight loss, these big things that we're all thinking about and we all talk about. I try to say them in slightly different ways. So if this is your first time hearing me, hopefully I say it in a way that's going to stick with you, because that's really what we've been going on with the message here. But really what I do with my stuff is I try to put, I just try to help you put all this fitness stuff into the context of your life. And there's no there's no hook with this. The information that's out there, if you have a plan that you're following and you're just trying to put some parameters around it, you'll be able to use the framework. There's a second level there where you just kind of need a little bit of personal guidance every once in a while, a little nudging, a little encouragement. If you go to the podcast, you'll hear, especially the most recent episodes, you'll hear me talk about the inner circle. I won't go into the details of that here, but if you listen to my podcast, you will hear about it. And then, so those are the people that just kind of need a little bit of guidance. And then the folks that are like, I've just had so much stuff going on with weight loss, I just want somebody to work through it with me. That's when we start having the conversation about working one-on-one. I have a background as a personal trainer. I've got 4 fitness certifications total. I've been doing this stuff for a long time with clients, and I've been involved in health and fitness for over half my life. So, but yeah, basically I want to get whatever it is you need to you, and then want to help you apply it to your life in whatever way's best. So if you're coming to my stuff on day one, that's the way to do it. But really, where you're going to see the biggest, probably the biggest thing for me, if you go to the site, if you go to yourlevelfitness.com, you'll see all my social media profiles. But again, Instagram is where I put a lot of stuff out at this point. Between Instagram and the podcast, you can get a pretty good idea for my message and how it's going to work for you. And like we said here, I'm all about the one-on-one conversation. So, anything you want to talk about when it comes to health and fitness, I'm all about it. And that's what I'd like to have happen between you and I. You're hearing this for the first time, and we get to where we're having a one-on-one conversation about your situation.
Daryl's dropping the fire right there. Day one. If it's August 1st and it's your first day on the gig, right there, go and talk to this man. Reach out, seek him out on Instagram, Your Level Fitness, yourlevelfitness.com. Daryl, it's a pleasure, man. I think we're going to have to do this where we just get you on here like once a quarter, man. Just have you just come on and drop some fire on us.
I love coming on your show, and it's great because you and we just keep coming up with stuff to talk about. It's fantastic. So yeah, I think we'll definitely be doing it again, but like always, I think we put some really good stuff out.
Yes, absolutely. And really what that means is Daryl comes in here and just burns this son of a bitch to the ground with all the knowledge he's dropping. Daryl, you are the man, dude. Thank you so much as always for doing the podcast. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary.